Jackson Hinkle has been doing very well on Twitter, and many people wonder where did this growth come from? Because now he's at 1.2 or 3 million followers, and I think quite recently he was at 500,000. So it's explosive. Where do you think this might come from?
So I think maybe a year ago when I checked his profile, it was at 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now it was 1.5
Yeah.
million. So I feel like it's, of course, it's not organic. We can clearly say that it's not organic. It's constructed. It's being pumped, and I feel like this, like going for the Palestine thing, pro-Palestine, you get a lot of support from troll farms from the Arab countries, for example, and that's a huge segment. So they can really push your follower count up. So that's kind of my theory. But he was also, of course, pushed by the Kremlin troll farms. And
Yeah, Jackson, I think he went to Moscow recently, if I'm not mistaken, a few weeks ago, and he was there and he was being driven around and giving access to various types of luxuries and privileges. But his profile is interesting because he is basically promoting any kind of anti-Western narrative or country. It doesn't matter if it's North Korea or the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, Iran. Basically, whoever is against the West, Jackson supports them.
Or who is the friend of the Kremlin, or in somehow
yes,
friend.
Right
or,
now, these two they are the same.
Yeah. Friend is a relative term, of course, here, but I mean associated with the Kremlin. So yeah, there's definitely a link there. But again, when he was in Russia, he gained 500,000 followers in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
So. Even before what happened in Palestine. So he's being pumped, that's for sure.
And also I think many people don't realize that he has been a self-described Stalinist or Marxist-Leninist, I'm not sure exactly what, but he has been a communist supporter for quite a long time, and I think many people who follow him don't even realize that this is the case.
Yeah, he calls it MAGA communism, so whatever that means. But basically, he's like Trump and then communism. It's weird.
It's an interesting marriage.
I don't think he knows what it means, but it's just something, you put these high words together and you have something.
Well, it clearly works for him. But it's interesting that many of these people who peddle Russian influence are not Russians at all. You mentioned Donbas Devushka from the US. But we have other cases here from Europe as well, a few of them which you revealed.
I've talked about these so-called big three of disinformation spreaders. At least two of them claim to be from Russia. One of them is Trollstoy88, of course. German guy claimed to be from Russia. And then Zoga 200, who was allegedly Bosnian Serb. Mm-hmm. And then Geroman AT, who is from Austria.
Yes.
But basically, he's never claimed to be from Russia. But yeah, he's Austrian communist.
If we maybe go into these one after one, how would you describe Zoka 200? Who is Zoka 200?
A young guy who's interested in probably the conflict, the war in Ukraine, and pushing the pro-Russian point of view, and then kind of suggesting to be someone they're not. So I don't remember the name of this Russian lady bodybuilder who I think she sent a message to Arnold Schwarzenegger at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, but. Basically, she was like using her images for promoting her account. And he turned out to be just a regular nurse guy from Bosnia. And
did he shut down his account, or am I?
Yes,
he did.
Yes. Most of these accounts that then, if they close their accounts, they are then hijacked, often by NAFO people or somebody. So you can actually, if somebody deletes their account, it can be hijacked. So you can take the name for yourself. So I would imagine that the current Zoga account with the same name is
somebody else.
Is somebody else, yeah.
And what about Geroman or Jeroman, because he has also been doing very well on Twitter.
Jeroman, it seems to be Austrian communist who strongly believes in Russia and the victory of Russia. So He's a quite bad analyst. That's what I've heard. I'm not a good analyst, so I don't really.
I have seen threads of Jeroman's predictions, and it is we will be in Kiev in 3 days. They will never receive HIMARS. Basically, whatever Jeroman says, a few weeks later,
happens.
the opposite happens.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. You go with that, but. Just a regular guy from Austria. I wouldn't say that there's anything special about him other than he's usually wrong.
Yeah.
So.
But then we also have these other people who you mentioned that they are not anonymous. For example, Kim.com. Who are these people who, for some reason, live in the West? They are quite famous. They are quite successful. But for some reason, they take a pro-Russian line. What do you think is behind this?
I think in many cases it's this contrarian, anti-establishment worldview that's kind of pushing it, and also they often believe in conspiracy theories. I mean, Kim.com is a perfect example. He's been sued in the U.S. and they're trying to extradite him to the U.S. For his crimes, cyber crimes, I assume, or copyright stuff. But he's been this contrarian throughout his whole life. He was a hacker and this kind of stuff. So he's always probably been a bit out like an outsider. But yeah, in his case, it seems like he is still like. Well, at some point he said he's gonna leave Twitter. He's not gonna post anymore. But he's still posting.
He seems to be one of those addicted to Twitter.
Exactly, yeah. And he's one of the few people who has threatened to sue me. So he was looking for a solicitor, like a lawyer in Finland trying to get me sued, and like he's gonna put me into bankruptcy and so on. But of course it never happened. Nothing happened. And
But also here, speaking about repercussions, do you get any kind of threats or anything like this coming your way after these releases of information that you have done?
Of course, yeah. It's usually interesting when I start talking about money or how can we affect the flow of money. Then they usually come in. So
this is when they get upset.
Yeah. That's that's probably why many of them are doing it. So if you start talking about the money and you follow the money trail, they get
shows their motivation.
So yeah, when I started going after Donbas Devuska's new channel, the money stuff there, and I got a death threat from Swedish individual, and we quickly identified him. I think he usually goes by the name Ghost on Twitter and Telegram, and so that was pretty nasty because it was just basically threats against me and my family. You can always threaten me, but when it's about family, then it's a bit sad.
Also, what is interesting here is you mentioned that your first stories were about Finnish people who were spreading pro-Russian narratives, but in general, if you look at Finland and Sweden, actually, I think both countries are among the top 3 in the world where the largest percentage of the population support Ukraine. Where does this strong support for Ukraine come from?
In the case of Finland, it probably comes from the history. So we had Winter War, Continuation War. We fought the Soviet Union. So it's the history. So my grandmother was she had to evacuate twice. She was 13 and 15, if I remember correctly, with dozen cows, like going to the other side of the country with people she didn't know. And there's a lot of this like history in that. Our country was demolished and a lot of people died because of the war. So some of you may, some of the people who listen to this may know about the shelling of Mainila. So it was this false flag attack.
A very interesting case.
Yes. So basically, Russians shelled their own positions.
Yeah, and claimed that this was Finland.
Yeah, and I think it's still they still plan a lot of these false flag attacks, but fortunately, intelligence is. It's pretty good these days in these cases, so they've been exposed before these kind of operations are conducted.
Yeah, this feels like it's a little bit of when you live with Russia as a neighbor, whether you're in Poland, in Finland, in the Baltic states, it seems like you have more understanding of what Russia's true nature is. When you're farther away, in Portugal, in France, in Holland, maybe this Russian threat doesn't seem so direct. But also, those people, they seem to be more prone to, oh, the Russians said this, they promised this, so we will believe in it. While in our part of Europe, we are more used to these Russian lies.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always quite naive to believe a politician, whatever country they come from. But if they come from Russia, then that's just ridiculous. Why would you do that? Because there's like this long history of lies after lies.